Robert Saleh. They fly him West Coast, East Coast, meets with Chris Johnson. He leaves the building, goes to Florida, meets with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then last night, Josina Anderson was the first to report it, and then Schefter hopped on board as well, that Robert Saleh was going to be the next Jet head coach, a 5-year deal, and there's a lot of trickle-down effect. But if you're a Jet fan, I think you've got to be absolutely ecstatic on this Friday morning, ecstatic last night, that you've got this passionate leader of men that I don't think there's anybody that said one bad word about what Robert Saleh is as a coach. Now let's see what he does as a head coach here with the Jets.
Can I give him the ultimate compliment? He's the anti-Adam Gase.
No doubt.
That's the nicest thing I can say about him. And if this isn't a rebound hire, then I don't know what is. And, Moose, unfortunately, if we want to just, be realistic about it, none of us really knows if he's going to be a great head coach. You don't know. I don't know. Joe Douglas doesn't know. However, if you're going to take a gamble on a guy who has never been a head coach before and is being elevated to this spot, this is the guy you take that gamble on. Because the track record would show you that he's on his way up. Now, this is someone who's been in the league since 2005, been working their way up the ranks, has been around a lot of very successful programs, including Seattle and obviously the San Francisco 49ers now. The reputation is sterling. You got someone who's going to fire up the fan base, and he'll create his own honeymoon period, which is something Adam Gase clearly never had. And I don't know if even Bowles really had that. And more importantly, though, he's going to connect with the players that he's coaching, because we can throw around a lot of these buzzwords about what the Jets were looking for and all that. I went back and listened to some of the things that John Lynch had to say about Robert Saleh. Obviously, Lynch was the tremendous safety in his career, but also as the general manager of the 49ers, we all know. And here's a couple things that stuck out to me that John Lynch had to say about Robert Saleh. This is what he said. He said, guys like Robert Saleh, they're smart. There's so much to like about him. He's incredibly bright. He does all this flexing on the sideline. He's got this bald head. He's running the stadium steps, and that all plays well to people. But do you have the substance behind that? There's a lot of substance to Robert Saleh. Then he went on. He said, Kyle Shanahan, he's sharp. He's demanding, You better be able to stand up. Kyle's going to ask for things, and he's going to challenge people, and that's a good thing. And Robert's done a really nice job. He said, Robert's a kind person. He's a gentle giant, but he's got a backbone too. And I think all of that's important.
Yeah.
Lynch went on, said, I have a tough decision on Saturday nights before Sunday games. Do I go watch the first 25 plays that Kyle puts in, because that gives a great outlook for the team and I love seeing it? He goes, but I also love story time with Robert Saleh, where he lays these stories into a theme for each week. He gets his players ready. They love him. So that's a little from John Lynch, besides just throwing around buzzwords, CEO, charisma, whatever. I thought those were some maybe a little bit more tangible things that you can expect from Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I think there's nothing not to like. But, I mean, you could say that about when any head coach is hired in the National Football League, right? When they're initially hired, for the most part. I mean, you could have your concerns as a fan base about whether you like the direction, offense, defense, how that person comes across during a presser. Clearly, Adam Gase struggled with that and was mocked for that, rightfully or wrongfully so. But, there was criticism of Adam Gase when he got hired, whether or not he could lead an entire team. He was brought here for one individual, and that being Sam Darnold, and we'll get to that storyline here momentarily. But, to Saleh here, he's going to get all the accolades, and he deserves this opportunity, and he's just 41. And you mentioned it, he's worked with Pete Carroll up in Seattle, Gus Bradley's staff down in Jacksonville, was an assistant with the Houston Texans, defensive coordinator, named to that position 2017 with the San Francisco 49ers. You listen to the players. I mean, you gave up the great examples and quotes from John Lynch, the executive and general manager out there in San Francisco with the 49ers. You listen to Richard Sherman, who tweeted out last night, the Jets just got a good one. Good for them. Richard Sherman, during the course of the year, Saleh makes no excuses. We had injury after injury after injury.
Yeah, they did.
And when Sherman gave that press conference, the 49ers were still a top 5 defense. He puts us in a position to win. He's a leader of men we'll do anything for our defensive coordinator. That says a lot. I mean, it does. Now, can it translate to being a head coach? Because what the Jets want, and you mentioned it, he's got a personality, so he's not Adam Gase. Communication is there, so he's not Adam Gase. Getting guys and having a game plan where all three phases are working together. You get the sense that Robert Saleh is going to be able to accomplish that. Plus, he's going to give this team an identity, a little bit of a personality, hold accountability, holding this team accountable as well, Maggie, and giving the Jets an identity of what they're going to be all about. And I think that's really, really important because you got a sense of what a Joe Judge team is going to be. We talked about what the hell are the Jets? What are the Jets the last 2 years? Well, I think Saleh is going to help define that. And here's the other thing that should get you excited. He wanted the Jets. I mean, this was a job that, and he was going to get hired as a head coach during these hiring. He got interviewed along with the Jets by 5 other teams out there. So he was going to get a head coaching opportunity. He was very, very well thought of, highly pursued. He looked at the Jets as a very, very attractive job. And I think a lot has to do with that, with where they are. They're going from the ground up. They've got draft capital to play with. They've got spending in the offseason. They're well under the salary cap in the National Football League. Whatever that number might end up being in 2021, the Jets are still going to be significantly under that number. And I think Joe Douglas is a very, very attractive general manager for a coach to work with because he has a sterling reputation around the NFL.
Well, yeah, and obviously he made a massive impression on Joe Douglas because they don't really have a connection in their past. I mean, you have to squint pretty hard to try to find where there could have been. I mean, there was no overlap between the two of them anywhere. Most the closest thing I could find was like Gary Kubiak, who first gave Saleh a job with the Texans in 2005, was the offensive coordinator in Baltimore while Joe Douglas was a scout there. I mean, I really had to dig to try to find a place where they really overlap, and it wasn't overwhelmingly available. Like, it didn't jump out at you as opposed to, like, if Doug Peterson had been hired or something like that, or Don Martindale, who they didn't even end up interviewing or asking for an interview. So he obviously had to jump off the page. And then there's a part of this for Douglas, which is, okay, first step down was hiring the head coach. Everyone's excited about it. Feels like a great hire. Everyone's rolling with this. You got the fan base behind you. Now, a couple things. You mentioned about Sam Darnold. Well, here comes Adam Schefter on ESPN last night saying that he would be surprised if Sam Darnold was not on the Jets next year. That's huge. We all know why. First of all, well, unfortunately, Schefter, I mean, way to come in and torpedo the potential trade value of the number 2 overall pick. But okay, maybe the Miami Dolphins moves can continue to make people believe they're taking a quarterback at 2, and then all these teams like the Atlanta Falcons and Lions and Panthers will have to jump over and trade for that number 2 pick. So thanks for nothing, Schefter. But this is huge because if you have Sam in place, it does create a lot more flexibility for what you want to do in the draft. And we all know that. I think this has more to do maybe with the college quarterbacks not blowing them away, and maybe actually trying to see what Sam would look like in that quote-unquote Shanahan offense, which Sam Darnold was a part of in his rookie year. Sam Darnold has had so much bad luck since he's been drafted by the Jets. Maybe the luck is starting to change here for Darnold a little bit, and he's done all the right things in terms of his dedication, all of that. He hasn't been particularly good, but maybe his fortunes start to change a little bit. The big question is, who is Mike LaFleur? Now, we know who he is. He was the passing coordinator for the 49ers, who's expected to be the OC. He's Matt LaFleur's brother, but are you getting Fredo here, or are you getting Michael Corleone? Because we don't really know too much about the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've all learned from the Shanahans. I mean, it all comes from McVay out in Los Angeles, LaFleur, Mike LaFleur. I mean, they're all a trickle-down effect from Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan. When you go back and you look at that staff when Mike was the head coach of Washington down in Maryland. So LaFleur's really well thought of. I mean, to the point where there was, his brother Matt tried to get him out of San Francisco and bring him to Green Bay when he got that job with the Green Bay Packers. But you would have to imagine it's going to be a similar offense to the one that Shanahan likes to run, where, he likes a quarterback that has mobility. It's a zone blocking scheme up front with that offensive line where you do a lot of rollouts. And Similar to the offense that Jeremy Bates ran in with Sam Darnold in Darnold's rookie year, where Sam had a good amount of success, right? And flashed a lot more in his rookie year than he has the last 2 seasons. Listen, good for Sam. I'm a huge proponent of Sam Darnold. He hasn't played particularly well. He's not been supported by this organization. But as Schefter reported last night, it's not just that Joe Douglas is a believer in Darnold. Robert Saleh is also a believer in Sam Darnold. And Schefter is giving you that information as an informed take from Adam Schefter. That is not him just saying, I think it's going to happen. He basically told you that Sam Darnold's going to be the starting quarterback for the Jets in 2021 for whatever reasons and rationale it might be. He's going to be back with this team, and let's see what Sam Darnold. We've tried it this way, where Sam hasn't been given much, right? They haven't been particularly well coached, not a great game plan, not much around him, worst roster, worst offensive roster in the National Football League. How about you try and support a young quarterback and bring some talent in here, give him a game plan that actually makes sense? And that's the other thing that excites me. I can't tell you what Mike LaFleur's offense, or if he's going to be this brilliant. He's taking a step up. He's going from passing game coordinator in San Francisco, former wide receivers coach, I believe, with Shanahan in the 49ers as well, and now he is going to be the offensive coordinator for this Jet team. You hope it works, and they're going to give Sam Darnold every opportunity to succeed and give him one last shot to be the guy that Mike McCagnon thought he could be when they traded up to the 3rd overall pick to go get him.
Yeah, but, with Sam's 3rd year, a lot of that bad roster, Joe Douglas's fingerprints are on that. So they're going to need to do some really intensive roster building this offseason, and they have the cap space, and they obviously have the trade assets to be able to do it. I would expect that some 49ers players are going to be coming with Robert Saleh, because as good as it is to have the coaches, you want the players to help you establish the culture as well. I keep thinking back to how much the 49ers thought that the turf at MetLife Stadium was the reason that they were seeing all these injuries. That's maybe a minor storyline, but one to look out for. But the 49ers have 40 free agents this year. 40! Yeah. That's crazy. And so hopefully Saleh can bring over some of those guys, and they can start establishing the culture internally and in the locker room. And I think Jets fans feel phenomenal about this, and you guys should.
I mean, if you judge social media last night when this news came out, I think there was overjoyed exuberation from the Jet fan about Robert Saleh being the new Jets head coach. I think you love his personality. I think you love his charisma. I think you love everything you hear about players who play for him. He's the anti-Adam Gase. He's going to connect not only with his players but also with the fan base. Accountability. It's a really, really good, smart, timely hire by the Jets. And the fact that the Jets went into this with eyes wide open. And Joe Douglas did not have a relationship with Robert Saleh, nor did Christopher Johnson. They went into it, they got overwhelmed by his Zoom call. They brought him here, he left the building, and then they give him the 5-year contract. They targeted the guy, he wanted to be here, they get the deal done. And I think Jet fans, just based on what you saw from the initial reaction, what you heard this morning with Boomer and Gio, Jet fans are exuberant that Robert Saleh is going to be their head coach.